From WHYY, it is hitting season. Hey there, podcast pals. I'm John Stolnis from The Good Fight. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at John Stolnis. Coming up, we'll talk a little hot stove. We are 1 week away from the winter meetings, and so there's going to be a little chatter, maybe some doings this week ahead of the winter meetings, but we're getting ready for a very busy winter meetings next week. So we'll go over the latest Phillies rumors involving JT Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber. We'll talk a little Ketel Marte. That was a big rumor going around last week. His trade interest and the where he might land. There was an interesting article I saw on That Ball's Out of Here about Phillies hot takes for you to argue about at Thanksgiving. I thought they were kind of fun. We could talk about a couple of those. And then I did want to check in on the Braves and the Mets because I know Justin last week said he had some Braves thoughts that I kind of wanted to dive into a little bit here on this episode of the podcast as well. So lots to get to here on this edition of Hittin' Season. Joining me here on the round table, of course, Justin Klugh and Liz Rozier. Justin Klugh from Baseball Prospectus. Follow him on Blue Sky at Justin Klugh, and of course over at our Hittin' Season Patreon. That's where you can find The Dirty Inning and Absolutely Hammered, a couple of our other Hittin' Season podcasts. Justin, how you feeling, pal?
Well, you're kind of seeing everybody's winter personas take shape, and the Orioles are doing a big ideas, small results kind of off-season, while the Giants, I'm just kind of scared of. What are the not scared of, like they're going to be so good. It's more just like, what are they up to? Like they had a certain idea for manager that did include Bruce Bochy, and then we obviously know it involved hiring the first college coach since 1972. And then, as that Tatsuya Imai quote was circulating last week, the Japanese player who's on the same level as the other guys we've been talking about, Okamoto and Murakami, a pitcher who's like a wacky side armor. And he had that quote where he said, I want to take them down, in reference to all the Japanese players playing in Los Angeles, because they asked him, hey, do you want to maybe join them? And he was like, no, I want to take them down. Of course, joining them sounds fun, but I think beating a team like that and becoming world champions would be the most valuable thing in my life. And the Giants were like, we're actually not in his market. We're not interested. So what are the Giants have a very specific plan that's like a secret plan. And I don't know. I kind of want to know what it is, because right now we're getting is hints. And I think they're the off season's kind of like lurking sinister presence.
Really?
I want to talk about that Imai quote too in just a second after we introduce Liz Rozier, the editor of Sabres Baseball Research Journal, and you can follow her on X and Blue Sky at Liz Rozier. I mean, generally speaking, these guys have just kind of wanted to go where they can be with the other Japanese players and form like their own Japanese league, in LA. And when he said that, I got palpitations. Like, I don't get excited for these Japanese guys, but Liz, that was cool. And the fact that he has that mentality, like, that's awesome. I would love to see him in Philadelphia.
I mean, that's the type of mentality you need to not just play in Philadelphia, but to want to play in Philadelphia. And for Philadelphia to be an attractive destination for you, because that matches up with, that's exactly what the Phillies want. They want someone who has that type of mindset. It's really cool for him to be like, why would I want to go be with all them? They're all the same over there. I think it's time to do something different. And I like that. I like that he's just upfront with wanting to be different and wanting to go somewhere else. He's like, for me, the most important thing is not necessarily being close to a direct flight to Japan or whatever. The most important thing to me is beating all those guys in the World Series and coming away successful.
Well,
so anybody who listened to Absolutely Hammered last week heard me go all in on Imai after that quote, and then also listened to Mike Robertson throw cold water all over that idea. It was just an episode. He kept doing that. It was really frustrating.
That's what my husband does every time I talk about it. Like, he's just like, and I'm like, stop talking and let me be excited.
But since we brought him up, I did just want to, give you the rundown here that this guy we're talking about is a 28-year-old with 9 seasons in Japan. He's thrown over 1,000 innings, and he's got this low arm slot that's like 10 inches lower than the MLB average. So he's a side armor, and he somehow has a fastball that he's right-handed, but he somehow has a fastball that comes inside on right-handed hitters, which Go ahead, explain that. Major League Baseball, American scientists, go ahead.
Physics.
Yeah, go ahead, physics. Take your best shot.
Yeah,
and then
try it.
And then try that slider on for size as well, because that's like his actual best pitch. The interesting part of this is that, not so much like he's coming out of Japan and he's got this great skill set and he's got all these great stats at playing in Japan. There's guys that come out and you see that kind of regularly. The interesting part of this to me was that we had to get to this point in this like subgenre, this baseball subsection of Japanese players coming to the United States. Like the culture there had to change. It's from like, oh yeah, they want to come to America and play probably for the Dodgers because they're like the number one team and they're on the West Coast, to like, no. Now there's enough guys who've come here and gone to the Dodgers. Now there's like enough of a reason to want to go somewhere else if you're the kind of guy who, is up for more competition than just, trophy hunting. And now it's cool that we're there because, there's no guarantee or even any evidence currently that the Phillies would even be interested in this guy. It's just cool that we are at this point where Japanese players are starting to talk like this, because this is where I think the Phillies can slip in.
Yes, that's where it
Exactly.
is. Exactly. Like there's enough. There's even the Japanese guys admit enough is enough with the Dodgers, and now I want to be on the other on a team that can take them down and be. We're looking for that Japanese star that wants to establish himself, be that guy in a new city. And if you're looking for a team that, I mean, the Giants say they're not interested. I mean, maybe the Padres would be interested. I don't know. But if you're looking for a team in that division, the Giants make the most sense, and it doesn't sound like they're playing in those waters. You're looking for, so who are the other Dodgers' big rivals? Right now, the Phillies are one of their big rivals. And, if you want to go to the American League and maybe a matchup against them in the World Series, that makes sense if he goes to New York or Boston or something like that. But if you're going to New York or Boston, if we're talking about location, Philadelphia is really no different. I mean, yes, the markets are bigger there. It's kind of more prestige a little bit, but
only a little bit.
Is it a whole lot more prestigious?
Yeah, I mean, you have a certain level of market teams, and like the New York teams, Philadelphia, Boston, Chicago, LA, these are your big name, big franchises. I think the Phillies are definitely a part of that group. I don't know if they're always a part of that group the way like the Yankees and Dodgers would be, even if they were having a downtime, but like the Phillies can be and currently are a part of that group. So it really just it comes down to like, why not Philadelphia? And if the players are starting to talk like this, I think that's a really good sign.
Well, let's dive into some of the other rumors that we've been hearing about this week with regard specifically to JT Realmuto and Kyle Schwarber. We'll start with JT Realmuto. Jim Bowden on MLB Network Radio said Realmuto is looking for a 2-year deal, which is interesting. I would have thought that initially he'd be looking for a 3-year deal, but it sounds like it's a 2-year deal, according to Jim Bowden. The Red Sox and Rangers are reportedly showing interest in Realmuto, and Bowden thinks he will ultimately end up back with the Phillies. Justin, let me get your thoughts on this rumor to start off, and let's guess the contract. Let's play a little Let's Guess the Contract with Realmuto. Now that we're hearing 2 years, my prediction is 2 years and $32 million. That's my initial thought right now. What do you think?
That is just about right where I had it. I said 2 years, 30 million. So I'm right in the same age bracket with you, or price bracket with you. You're obviously in a much different age bracket than me.
Much different age bracket than you.
Yes,
I know. Thank you.
But yeah, I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to kick your not having a catcher problem down the road for a couple more years. And I'm not super scared of the Red Sox popping up as potential third parties in the Phillies negotiations with both Realmuto and Kyle Schwarber. I think the Red Sox, Realmuto is like a fit for them for a couple of reasons, but only as like a temporary solution. I mean, he's definitely got some appeal for them, but he's not producing the level of offense that, obviously he used to, and that's an area where they're trying to improve as well. I don't know. Something else I've been talking about lately is the young catcher for the White Sox, Edgar Caro. Are you familiar with this person?
No.
It is the only player I've found who I was like, oh, this would be an interesting alternative to Realmuto, because that's ultimately what this comes down to is that, Realmuto wants a 2-year deal. Honestly, that shouldn't be too hard for the Phillies to get accomplished. I don't think, they want to think too hard about alternates, but the young White Sox catcher, Edgar Caro, he really he doesn't have too many negative aspects to him. Like, and he's not super well known, and he's only 22, but he's like, this great young hitter. He manages a pitching staff really well, and that's what really like popped off the page at me about him, was that he has this great personality, and he's bilingual, and he has this famous rapport with all of the pitchers that he handles on the White Sox. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be interesting for just like 1 second to like catch one of those guys at the beginnings of their careers.
Yeah.
And just like, instead of having to worry about what to do about catching in 2 years, suddenly you're locking a guy up because you feel like he's got great promise. I mean, the Phillies used to do this all the time. We know the Dalton to Chooch catcher position in Philadelphia was really only handled by 3 different guys, 4 if you count Benito Santiago that one opening day. So I don't know. I started thinking about alternatives to JT Realmuto, but at the end of the day, I think that's going to be a fruitless exercise because, I think the Phillies will come forward with the kind of deal you and I just described, and it shouldn't be that complicated.
Yeah, Liz, we've talked a potential trade possibilities out there. The back, there's a guy with the minor league guy with the Mariners and the Dodgers and some of these other these teams with established catchers, but it doesn't sound like any of those guys are going anywhere this offseason. So, Liz, I mean, I think a 2-year contract would be a perfect bridge to whatever the unknown is, with whatever catcher X, it's whoever it might be in 2028. So what are your thoughts on the contract and 2 years and what that means for the Phils?
I think 2 years is a blessing. I think if the Phillies, when the Phillies heard that, when Dombrowski heard that, he was probably like, hey, let's get something worked out before anyone else gets in here. Because I think the big worry is that he was going to want more, especially after he had, some really good periods this year. I could have envisioned him wanting a 3-year, but I think even, Mr. Iron Man understands that age is playing a role in his abilities and sort of understands that, no matter how good he might look or feel, he's still an aging catcher and he's got to lower his expectations for what the market's going to give him. And I think this is a good way to do it. Like, I want 2 years, and like, that's doable. Like, if he actually will take, $16 million a year for 2 years, that's great. That's like a $6 or $7 million savings from his salary this year, which I believe is like 23, 24.
Yeah, he signed for $5 and $115. I don't know what exactly that number is off the top of my head, but yeah, I think it's over a little over 20, obviously 21, 22 million, something like that.
Yeah, but it's still, it's not an enormous amount of savings, but it's still savings for a team that has a lot of other things they not just want to do, but need to do this offseason. Yeah, so if he really wants it, lock him up, guys. Don't waste any time. Just do it.
Yeah, and the money might get a little high if there are a couple serious bidders, and maybe if one's willing to go to 3 years, but I am surprised. I thought there would probably be a 3-year ask, and maybe there was initially, and he found nothing out there like that. But I did also see, and I don't know how legitimate the source was, but it did sound like maybe a Realmuto signing could be coming this week, but I haven't seen that reported by any one of the major reporters, so we'll just kind of wait and see on that. We'll talk a little Kyle Schwarber. Jeff Passan on Threads. Jeff Passan using Threads for his social media of choice for whatever reason right now.
Whatever.
And at this point, he's not coming to Blue Sky just to spite it. All right, I'll stop.
Who cares?
I don't know, but I mean,
my God, whatever.
Anyway, bringing it to Threads, Jeff Passan says the Phillies remain the favorites on Kyle Schwarber. He says the market is healthy, but that Schwarber is going to get years and AAV, which I don't know, no specificity on that. He said he might be the likeliest of all the big free agents to sign first. He said he'd be surprised if at the winter meetings and and he doesn't have a team. So expecting Schwarber to announced during the winter meetings who he's signing with. The Phillies remain the favorite, with Boston, Cincinnati, and the Mets the other teams in the mix. Todd Zolecki reported last week that the two sides were, quote, not close to a deal, but they also downplayed that quite a bit, noting that initially JT Realmuto's asking price when he was a free agent the last time around was for well over $200 million, and the two sides were not close. And then JT Realmuto essentially had to lower his asking price by about $100 million before they got closer to a deal. So it could be something that Schwarber is shooting the moon right now, and really nobody is close to a deal. But we'll see. John Morosi also on Monday night said that Schwarber will sign before Kyle Tucker. neither will sign this week, and that it feels like we're heading toward a winter meetings extravaganza.
Yeah.
All right, so Liz, it sounds like Kyle Schwarber will sign before Kyle Tucker. It sounds like the Phillies are still the favorites. It sounds like it's going to be for the kinds of years and money maybe that Schwarber is looking for. So let's guess the contract for Schwarber. I feel like he's looking at 6 years, $180 million if the market is pretty robust. That's $30 million a year, average annual value over 6 years. That is a lot of money, but I don't know. That's kind of where I'm feeling like this contract is heading. What are you thinking?
I like $180 million, but I'd give it to him over 5 years. I love Schwarber. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to go over. I don't feel comfortable going over 5 years for him. He is still older, not old, but older than what you would consider, what people today would consider the ideal quote unquote baseball player. And, you get older, things deteriorate. And I just sort of want to shield the Phillies. Maybe have an option year, a mutual option at the end of it for a 6th year for $20 million or something like that. I think that's the best way to get around, committing 6 years to an aging slugger.
Yeah, maybe they do one of the Ruben Amaro favorites where it would be like an incentive based or like a, based on plate appearances in his final 2 years. If he has at least 600 plate appearances over his final 2 years.
He loves doing that.
Remember when he used to do all that for everybody? Justin, what do you think?
I had it at 5 years, 150 million. I think we're all basically in the same general spot here. And yeah, I really don't think it's ever wavered once that Schwarber was going to be one of the first deals of the off season, and that he was ever going to go anywhere other than Philadelphia. I know he hasn't re-signed yet, but just all we've got is evidence that he would be coming back. I love the phrase that the two sides are not close in this context. It really paints the picture that they're currently in the negotiating room, facing away from each other with their arms folded.
One's got their back here, and then one's got their back over here. Yeah.
Oh, and I was imagining them at opposite ends of a long dining table, like you see movies with castles, but it has leaves, and every time they get closer on the deal, someone takes a leaf out and they shove the table closer together until they get close. Then they're close on a deal.
Like you're two rich people at the very end of a really long table. Could you please pass the latest contract proposal? And somebody gets up and walks all the way over to the other end of the table and puts it down.
Deliver it to the end of the table.
Walks all the way back. Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think I would have been unsurprised if this didn't. I would have been surprised if this didn't go down at the winter meetings, I guess is what I'm saying, even before anybody said anything. And honestly, I'll throw in that I think Phillies are going to pull off a little trade at the winter meetings as well.
Well, what kind of trade? You got me interested.
Funny you should ask. I think they're going to deal from their small pile of lefties. I think this is a moment where Matt Strahm could be sent somewhere for, maybe you get a big league ready minor leaguer to sort of fill the back end of your prospect load. Or Gelb has been bringing up Jake Myers of the Astros for 3 straight weeks.
Ken Rosenthal mentioned him as a guy who could potentially be for the Phillies on Monday too. Yeah.
No power in that right-handed bat, but he can play some defense, I guess.
Because that's what we want. A guy who can play defense but can't hit. We love that.
I can just see that. I can see a deal like that taking place.
We got one of those guys. His name's Johan Rojas. So if you want to no-hit center field, actually, Rojas's defense is.
Are you sure? Are you talking about best Dominican Winter League player of all time, Johan Rojas?
I'm talking about the best Dominican League winner player of all time, Johan Rojas. No, and we used to think of Rojas as elite defensively. I think in his last couple big league seasons, he wasn't anything like that. He would be the Astros guy. Jake, what was
Myers.
it? Myers, yeah, thank you. Would be a plus glove out in center field and certainly gives you all the defense you want. But so does Harrison Bader. He gives you a little bit more offense. Would cost more for sure, in terms of money and years. And so there's just a balancing act.
But that's what happens when you sign someone better.
Yeah. But if you're going to
play, they usually cost more money.
But if you're going to play Justin Crawford in left and then you make Jake Myers your center fielder, man, that right fielder better be pretty freaking good because...
Well,
saying, come on.
MLB.com says the Phillies have a perfect fit outfielder out there waiting for him. So, folks, just get on the horn with Rob Refsnyder, and you will have the right-handed bat you need. Can he hit right-handed pitching?
No.
Not with his bat. I think he can. I think he can see it some of the time. Is he fast? No. Is he better than mediocre at base running? I just said he wasn't fast, but he is one of the best hitters versus lefties. He's consistent, and he's only looking for a 1-year deal. So say hello to your new outfielder, ladies and gentlemen, Rob Refsnyder.
Can you imagine an off season where
What are you
Jake
doing?
Myers, Rob Refsnyder are the two big off season ads, and then you bring
I'm
in
gonna
Justin
walk
Crawford
into the
And
sea.
By the way, if you think that's not on the table, you haven't been paying attention to this franchise for the last few off
Directly
seasons.
into the ocean.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna walk there directly.
I will mention one other slew of little tidbits. There's nothing really meaty in here at all, but from John Heyman, he had a couple different things. He mentioned that the Phillies are lurking on Cody Bellinger. I don't know exactly what that means. Hiding in the trash cans outside his house.
Binoculars, looking in windows.
Heyman's paycheck from the Yankees cleared, and they were like, all right, say this. And he was
Got
like,
it.
okay.
Got it. He also mentioned regarding the Phillies that they are willing to talk about Marsh and maybe Bohm in trades. I love reporting the Bohm thing like it's news or like that. It's like, what? Not
Literally
Alec
news
Bohm?
every single week
You're
of the year
kidding.
last
The
year.
third baseman, Alec Bohm.
The Phillies third baseman. Jerry Bohm. There's
I
gotta be
traded.
more Bohm.
I don't think that's who they're talking about. Can't be.
No.
Well, certainly you wouldn't bring up any of his behavioral issues, would you?
No.
I mean,
Why would you do that?
And Brandon Marsh, we've talked about as somebody who could move as well. Especially, they have Gabriel Rincones. If you're going to platoon everything out in the outfield, maybe you move Marsh for a bullpen piece, and you give Gabriel Rincones the left-handed side of a platoon, and bring in the right. I mean, there's different ways to shake things up, and we've been talking about different guys the Phillies could move. Marsh and Bohm are certainly two of those names that might have some appeal to teams around the league, but. Are relatively cheap and are not tied up contractually to the Phillies right now. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Heyman also says Tatsuya Imai is a potential option. Now, bear in mind, all of these things I'm mentioning from John Heyman, he said them in about 15 seconds in a video, so there was no depth or explanation or level of confidence in any of these things.
His thumb over the camera for half of it.
Right, exactly. But he did mention Imai as a potential option, and also that he said, there's a possibility of bringing Ranger back, and that was it. That's all we got. So, I don't know.
Thanks, John.
He spent just a few seconds on the Phillies as part of a longer video, and that was all packed into about 15 seconds. But anything there, Justin, Liz, anything there grab your attention?
I mean, not really. Cody Bellinger would be probably the most expensive free agent you could be going after, and that just doesn't seem to be the Phillies' bag right now.
No.
A possibility that they could re-sign Ranger Suarez. I mean, yeah, there's always been a possibility. If you're talking about a non-zero chance, then yeah, sure, that's always existed. The assumption is it's not a very big possibility. And trading Bohm and Marsh, yeah, I mean, we've been talking about that since the season ended. So
talking about that since last year.
Yeah. I'm up for anything with regards to changing the mix up right now. And I know Marsh has been a fan favorite. Bohm has not been a fan favorite, but really would depend on what you get back. But I'm open to anything at this point, including moving Bryson Stott as well. And that's where I wanted to kind of go to next, because there was some talk last week about Ketel Marte, the trade rumors, or the speculation about a Ketel Marte trade from the Diamondbacks to somewhere was the topic of conversation around the league. I guess the beginning of last week, because nobody cared at Thanksgiving. But I was thinking about this in terms of a Phillies trade. How much would you guys be willing to give up for Ketel Marte? We all know that he's got a phenomenal power bat. We all know that he misses about 30 games a season due to injury and vacations, which has been a little bit of a point of contention with some.
I mean, I will say that those 3 games he missed this year, right after the All-Star break, ready to fly back to the Dominican Republic, came on the heels of his home being broken into and losing $400,000 worth of his belongings. I don't know what exactly, transpired here or there or what was said, but like that happened, and then he flew back and missed some games. It wasn't just that he was like, you know what, I just want to get a drink with a little umbrella in it, and left the Diamondbacks in the middle of a playoff race.
Yeah, I feel like along with your wife giving birth and a family member dying, your house being robbed of hundreds of thousands of dollars of belongings and whatnot is an excuse to miss some games.
Fair enough. I know that it rubbed teammates
It did rub them the wrong way.
It wasn't the
yes.
first time, and apparently it's been an ongoing thing with his teammates, and so there was some internal discord. Obviously, we talked a little bit about that last year. Either way, he's exceedingly talented. He does miss a handful of games every year, kind of like how Bryce Harper does, but when he's on the field, phenomenal switch hitter, especially from the right side of the plate. Signed through 2031 for $102 million, so just $17 million a year average annual value, which is a great deal for the production that he puts up. He's entering his mid-30s, and so again, the production may not be able to stay there for quite so long. And the Phillies have, he's a little bit he'd be blocked in the infield positions if they made a trade for him, unless they gave somebody up. So here was my proposed trade. And I want you guys to give me your opinion. Who says no to this trade? The Phillies or the Diamondbacks? I offered up Justin Crawford, Bryson Stott, and Gage Wood for Ketel Marte. I just for frame of reference, I asked on Twitter, I put out a poll and I got 455 responses back. Nearly 54% said the Phillies would say no, that it was too much to give up. 46% say the Diamondbacks would say no, that it wasn't quite enough. So that to me tells me maybe I'm kind of in the ballpark of what might be a fair trade if you get kind of that even a split. So, Justin, what are your thoughts on my proposal? Crawford, Stott, and Wood for Ketel Marte. Would you do that?
Honestly, I'm not sure you want to be pulling from your system that's already pretty thin at the top, with as much as Justin Crawford's been brought up as a kind of central part of this team's future plans. And I was looking at this as though it was the trade that you specified. So with Stott gone in that deal, you're down a Gold Glove caliber defender, and you're bringing in Marte, whose speed and defensive grades have dropped, though he's been very effective with his bat. And I didn't even really kind of register exactly how effective until I started looking into this. He's been hitting 288 for the last 2 years. And since 2023, among second basemen in Major League Baseball, he is first in home runs, first in on base, first in slugging, first in RBI, first in exit velocity, first in hard hit percentage, first in weighted runs created plus, first in FWAR, first in another one that I don't even know what it is, and then second in walk percentage and walk to strikeout ratio. I mean, that is a productive offensive player, and like you mentioned, he hits for power and average. He walks a ton, hasn't struck out in over 19% of his at-bats in 11 years. He hits the ball as consistently as possible and as hard as Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. He doesn't miss a whole lot. He doesn't chase a whole lot. And then, you start looking at his defense and you're like, honestly, I can live with that, given how much you get from him at the plate. His ground ball rate last year was lower than ever, which is music to anybody's ears who has him playing next to Justin Crawford. And the pull rate was higher than ever as well. It's viewed as him being able to avoid a decline in his mid-30s, that his improvements have come in a rush right now in his age 31, age 32 seasons. That assumption is out there and is probably very valuable to other teams. And I'll add this. He also crushed the Dodgers and the Braves this year. He played the Dodgers a lot more, but he hit 341 with an 1135 OPS in 53 plate appearances against the Dodgers. Hit 545 in 15 plate appearances against the Braves this year. Those are two teams the Phillies would want to beat. And also, he started 40 games as a leadoff hitter, which is a constant conversation in Philadelphia. And, here's another option who hit 289 in the leadoff spot. So, having learned all that, I came back around and thought, you know what? I feel like the Diamondbacks might say no to this because the Phillies aren't a very strong team prospect-wise, and another team is going to be able to outbid them when you're looking at Justin Crawford, we're very aware of what his flaws are, can't get the ball off the ground, doesn't track fly balls well, Bryson Stott, who's coming off a couple of down disappointing years, and Gage Wood, who Baseball America did say there's zero doubt that Wood has the stuff to dominate hitters, but the stuff's not there yet because, he's young and in the minor leagues and he needs to learn how to manage his workload. So if those are the guys you're offering for a guy who can do everything I just listed, I don't know if the Diamondbacks are staying on that phone call very long.
Liz, what do you think?
Well, I started listening to that with one opinion and finished listening to it with another. Now I'm not quite sure where I am because I don't like the idea of losing Bryson Stott. I think of Bohm and Stott, I would always rather keep Stott. Um, but and I can't even really tell you why. It's just personal preference, and so I don't want to see him go. But if he can do all those, if Marte can do all those things for the Phillies, if he could do those things for our team, the team that we like, I would like that very much. I would very much like that. I think it would be good because I don't think we've had a guy who could do all those things in quite a while. Like a guy who reliably does all of those things, like all of them.
He's on a deal till 2030 as well, which that's a little distance of a date for a guy who's 32 now.
It's a little distance of a date, but at the same time, it's not a 1-year rental. So giving up Bryson Stott in this particular case, I'm more okay with that because he's a free agent in 2 years. Justin Crawford, I just, I'm not in that. I'm curious to see what Justin Crawford can do. Obviously, I want him if they're not going to make any big moves for the outfield. I'm very much looking forward to seeing him and what he can do in the outfield next year. But I'm not overly confident that he's going to be more than like what Ben Revere was at the big league level. And so, if you're asking me, would I be willing to go like Ben Revere? And in Bryson Stott, a player who has been kind of a below league average hitter at second base, despite the other things that he can do over the last 2 seasons. And Gage Wood, who is promising, but still, a little bit away from the majors. And you've got some other pitchers that, you can kind of turn to there. I'm doing that deal in a second if I'm the Phillies. And if I'm the Diamondbacks, I think I can probably get at least one higher end prospect than Justin Crawford to headline a deal. That'd be my guess. But that's I think that's as good as I would want the Phillies to do. I'm not giving up Andrew Painter or Aiden Miller in any deal right now. They are still untouchable for me. And so I'm keeping those 2 guys no matter, unless it's, again, Painter for Tarek Skubal or something like that. That I'm doing. But
straight up.
Or Paul Skeens. Like, I'm getting one of those 2 guys. Sure. Yep. You guys, Andrew Miller, good luck. Andrew Painter, sorry, good luck. But I'm conflating Andrew Painter and Aiden Miller and creating Andrew Miller, who was the plant guy, right?
Brad Miller.
Andrew Miller was the closer for Cleveland, I think, during 2016, during their run. I remember that vaguely. I paid really close attention to that World Series. Yeah. I found it very exciting.
Very good. All right. So anyway, I think it's a fair offer for the Phillies. I think it's the best the Phillies can offer. And so, but I don't anticipate Ketel Marte coming to Philadelphia in a trade. Don't see that coming at all. All right. So I ran across this article at a website Justin and I used to write for. Justin ran that balls out of here. This is my first Phillies writing job. Really, it was just doing my own thing, and then Justin was running that balls out of here. He brought me aboard, and so every now and then check out what those guys are doing over there. And they had a really good compilation. Their authors work together to come up with a compilation of 8 Phillies hot takes that will cause family arguments at Thanksgiving. I thought it was a creative idea, and I liked a few of them. So I thought we could each pick one of these to discuss, to pick your favorites. So let me read them for folks, and then I'll let you guys choose which one you want to go to first. The first one, Pete Alonso would be a fan favorite if he signed with the Phillies. The second is, Rafael Marchan is the Phillies' best catching option for 2026 and the foreseeable future. Number 3, the Phillies really don't need to move on from Nick Castellanos this offseason. Number 4, Pete Rose is the best free agent signing in Phillies history. Number 5, the Phillies would be better off letting Schwarber walk in free agency. Number 6, Rob Thompson is actually a good manager. Number 7, recent waiver claim Pedro Leon is the answer to the Phillies' outfield woes. And number 8, the Phillies should trade number 1 pitching prospect Andrew Painter now. So Liz, which one of these do you want to start with first? We'll each pick one.
I hate all of them.
That's exactly the point.
Okay.
Did they have little explainers
Yes,
attached to each of the? Okay, great. Because some of these I'm like, I don't know if there's evidence to support
I can
this
read
hot
the
take.
explainers for whatever one you choose. I have a link attached there on the show sheet,
Well,
so I
go ahead,
clicked on it
Liz.
just now. So pick which one you want, and then I will read the explainer.
I'll take. The Phillies really don't need to move on from the Castellanos this offseason. I was going to choose the Pete Alonso one, but I thought I could do this. Let's hear this.
All right. It's no secret that things didn't end. And this is Andrew Santangelo. Yeah, Andrew Santangelo wrote the explainer here, so give credit where credit's due. It's no secret that things didn't end well for the Phillies and Nick Castellanos. However, the idea that he has to be moved feels overblown. Castellanos was a .273 hitter with 12 homers and 51 RBIs before battling a knee injury and conflict with manager Rob Thompson. In the end, these are adults who should be able to work out issues. Castellanos is reliable and will be in the lineup every day. He delivered 2 doubles and 3 RBIs in the NLDS this year. In 2024, he hit .412, and during the trip to the NLCS in 2023, he should have put in 2024.
He hit 2
in the
key
NLDS.
doubles, and then also in a different season, he did something else.
In 2024, he's saying he's a good postseason player. In the 2024 NLDS, he hit .412, and during the trip to the NLCS in 2023, he delivered 5 home runs. Castellanos has plenty of walk-off moments with the Phillies. He might not be the best at times, but a lineup that goes cold if it is built correctly, with him hitting 6th or 7th, could work as he hits in big spots more than others.
That's some heavy spin. And let me say, this is a fantastic list. It's a great premise and a terrific list of hot takes.
These are all hard.
That was some heavy spin. And what did they say? He may not be the best at times. Do you mean the literal worst at times? Because that's actually factually correct.
Yes, that is actually
correct. Correct.
All right, now listen.
Yeah.
I'm on the Nick Castellanos needs to be traded train. And I think everyone has already counted him out as being on the Phillies in 2026. And I get that. And I'm on board with it. But I also want to say, think of the number of jobs that a baseball team needs to be done. Lots and lots of things. I don't know. They could make up a spot. Like, I don't know, Phillies cultural director. He can find art shows for them all to go to. There are lots of things that Nick Castellanos could do on the Phillies, guys. You don't have to trade him. You can put him somewhere else. Think he would enjoy being a chef? Maybe he could do that. Does he want to be equipment manager? He could go onto the landscaping crew.
So it's funny you mentioned him being a chef. He absolutely could not be a chef. Sports Illustrated had a feature this past week on the Phillies' eating habits, and Castellanos described himself as barbaric. He said he typically makes a bowl of ground beef with like a little seasoning and a banana. And he says if he could, he would eat that, like he'd be happy eating that for the rest of his life. So I would not make him in charge of cooking anything for anyone. That was a Stephanie Apstein feature on Sports Illustrated. It was
he's psychotic. He's psychotic. That's all now I'm starting to get it.
If they sold human food in a big sack like dog food, Nick Castellanos would eat that with a scoop.
Like that is the thinking that gets us to Soylent.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we got Soylent, the meal replacement drink that tastes like boiled garbage and like is supposed to replace an actual meal with food in it.
What was the place that Ron Swanson used to shop at in Parks and Recreation?
Food and Stuff.
Food and Stuff. It sounds like he just buys all of his food at Food and Stuff.
He would if he could. But you know, maybe not chef. But I'm sure there are a lot of different things that he could do, right?
From a baseball standpoint, the argument for Nick Castellanos staying around is the Phillies
non-existent, which is why I could not finish the prompt. Why I had to suggest that he become the Phillies' strength trainer.
Okay.
Their argument is that he might play 162 games of some of the worst baseball you've ever seen and then come through for you in the postseason. That's their argument.
Which he notably did not do this year still.
He did do that this year, though. He was the only one. He got
two doubles, Liz. Did you not hear
two doubles? I heard it.
Two key doubles. Hey,
Yeah,
only
and
one
those
player
were the
knocked in a
only
run in Game
times he
4.
could have come in for the Phillies.
Only one player knocked in a run in Game 4, and that was Castellanos reaching out and poking a ball into left field accidentally.
The thing he does that always works.
That always works.
Definitely timely, and was not just a Band-Aid that fell off.
All right,
A Band-Aid over a wound that soon fell off, exposing the festering, huge, enormous cut underneath it.
Wow.
It's an interesting argument. They did not convince me, unfortunately.
No, not me. I tried my best, but there is no baseball reason to keep him. I'm very sorry. That's as good as I could do.
The only thing I would have added is that there is a shortage of right-handed hitting outfielders who can hit for a little bit of power in this league, and that if you were going to just platoon Nick Castellanos, he appeared to have more success in that role in September as a strictly platoon player. That being said, on this team, making the amount of money he was making and the pedigree that he had with Rob Thompson, that was not going to work in 2026. He would not be happy being a platoon player in Philadelphia, and so he needs to go. But that could be the only argument that you could make.
You can find a guy to play right field, hit 210, and not argue with Rob Thompson.
Exactly.
You can find that pretty easily, I feel like.
Exactly. All right, Justin, you pick yours.
All right. So the Alonso thing, I don't think we need to talk about because I think that's exactly right. I don't think that's probably not even that hot of a take. You're just putting Pete Alonso and Phillies next to each other, but that would happen. I'm trying to imagine the 2026 Phillies with all of the 2026 Phillies hot takes engaged. So like in this scenario, Alonso's playing first. Castellanos is still here. Schwarber left.
Yeah.
Pedro Leon was brought on as their outfield replacement, and also Andrew Painter has been traded for who? No idea. But the one I really want to mention is Rafael Marchan is the Phillies' best catching option for 2026 and the foreseeable future. I would like to hear more about this because this is a concern for me.
All right, Michael Hennelly wrote this, and he said, the Phillies have a decision to make at catcher. JT Realmuto is a free agent and will be 35 years old next year. Losing Realmuto, who's declining with age, in free agency may not be the worst thing for the Phillies. A lot has been said about the Phillies' lack of depth at catcher, but Rafael Marchan has the skill set to be productive in a larger role. The 26-year-old hit just .210 in 2025, but was limited to 105 at-bats. He's a former top prospect with above-average defensive capability, but dealt with multiple injuries early in his development. He hit .294 with 7 extra base hits in 17 games in a platoon role, while Realmuto was out with an injury during the 2024 season.
It kind of just said who Rafael Marchan is. I mean, I didn't hear anything there that convinced me he's anything greater than he currently is, which is like a guy who hits more home runs in the majors than he does in the minors and provides a serviceable enough amount of catching. I mean, was there something in there that like graduates that argument to the next level? I heard a description. I heard a scouting report for Rafael Marchan, who is not a starting catcher in Major League Baseball.
He has the skill set to be productive in a larger role.
See, yeah, and he didn't back that up with any real weight, because he himself.
Maybe they mean he has like the catching gear for a larger role.
That's right. That's where the weight comes from. He is prepared to be a catcher because he does have all that equipment.
That is his job, really.
Yeah,
I mean, I would love to believe that. I would love to believe that there's an in-house heir apparent or even heir unapparent that the Phillies could have waiting to fill the need at catcher should Realmuto go. But I've just never seen anything from Marchan to indicate that he can stay on the field for long periods of time because, like they mentioned, he has a long history of missing time due to injury and, has never appeared to make an adjustment on the major league level to hit better than a, backup catcher typically hits. So I don't know. I want to be convinced of this. I think it's a wild idea, but once again, I just don't think the numbers are there to back this hot take up. I think if you brought this up at Thanksgiving, you might get a lot of eye rolls. You wouldn't get a lot of people probably wouldn't even argue with you.
I feel like most of these, if you had a relative at Thanksgiving and you were talking to them and they may, regardless of whether they were a Phillies fan or not, if they said something like, like anything on that list, would you check them for a head injury?
Yeah.
If someone said Rafael Marchan should be the Phillies starting catcher, he will do well in that role, they should let JT Realmuto walk, I'd be like, come here. Let me grab your scalp and make sure you're not bleeding.
And I'd say, Grandma, Another helping of ground beef and banana for me and all my friends.
Nice callback.
I gotta
Nice
tell you,
callback.
I have
Yeah, that was
never
good. Well done.
hated. I've
Yeah.
never hated Nick Castellanos more. Since
Um,
learning that he's just like ground beef and a banana, I'm just like, get out of here.
Protein and potassium. It's the breakfast of champions, and also Nick Castellanos, apparently.
And also the lunch and dinner of champions, and also Nick Castellanos.
So the other ones on this list, I feel like, again, we've kind of talked about to some degree. Pete Alonso and a fit with the Phillies. I think we all agree he would be a really good fit if they end up not going away from Kyle Schwarber. And we've also kind of talked about, hey, should the Phillies move away from, should they let Schwarber walk in free agency? We don't think they should, but if they do, there's obviously other things they could do where you could make an argument that, maybe they would be better off. I don't agree that they would be, but that certainly can be debatable. I don't know, you're throwing mashed potatoes at each other if that happens, if you have that conversation. Pete Rose, the best free agent signing in Phillies history, okay. I still think it's Harper, but I can see the argument,
We can also just never talk about Pete Rose ever
and that's the
again.
thing, you bring up Pete Rose, you're going to get people fired up no matter what. So it's kind of low hanging fruit there. We all believe Rob Thompson's a good manager, maybe not a great postseason manager, but he's a good manager. I don't think that's an issue. The one I want to talk about, and we talked about Andrew Painter. He's untouchable unless you're getting Tarek Skubal. Recent waiver claim Pedro Leon is the answer to the Phillies outfield woes. Again, Michael Henley wrote this. And Michael, I appreciate the deep dive here into Pedro Leon, but this is one of those that I feel like they decided we need to have 8. So let's figure out a way to get 8. And that this was, I just don't feel like your heart can really be into honestly believing Pedro Leon should be penciled in to be a starting outfielder for the Phillies in 2026. He wrote, Pedro Leon was the Houston Astros' former number 2 prospect and could be the answer to the Phillies' right-handed hitting outfielder problem. He has a tantalizing tool set and was supposed to be a star in the major leagues. Unfortunately, injuries have halted those expectations. Leon made it all the way to AAA in his first season with the Astros in 2021, but he has yet to make an impact at the major league level. He hit .299 with 24 home runs, 90 RBIs, and joined the 2020 club for the second consecutive season with 29 stolen bases in 2024 in the minors, but he hit just 100 in 20 at-bats after his promotion to the majors. Leon was limited to 25 games in the minors in 2025 due to knee issues and was designated for assignment after the season. The Baltimore Orioles claimed him before designating him for assignment themselves less than 2 weeks later before the Phillies claimed him. So I get that there's a tantalizing skill set there. The Phillies also signed Brian De La Cruz to a minor league contract because De La Cruz does the same kind of thing in the minors and then gets to the majors and is largely horrible. Teams like the Astros, love them or hate them, usually don't throw guys away if they feel like somebody has a major league future and it's just been kind of sidelined by injuries. So I don't see, I'm fine to have him on the, in the minors and AAA. Let's see what he does this year. If he gets a call up during the course of the season, I can see that happening, but there's no way Pedro Leon is the answer to the Phillies outfield woes. Just none.
He hit 100 in the majors. 100. Not even the worst Phillies. That's real low. That's very low. Not even the Phillies' worst bats hit 100 this year. At least the ones that did weren't around very long.
He struck out in 30% of his plate appearances for 2 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that ain't the guy.
I want to be clear here. I'm not insulting the writers who wrote this list. I think this is doing exactly what it's supposed to. But I am having a
conversation.
I'm not being convinced. I'm glad we're looking into these, but I'm not convinced of most of these claims.
Yeah. Anyway, I highly suggest, people check out the article. That ball's out of here. Really well done, and fun to talk about. So not criticizing, because I realize they're just kind of putting stuff up there for people to debate. Some decent arguments there, but I thought those were fun to kind of run down and take a look at. Before we move away from the Phillies, I did just want to mention something I saw that at Phil's tailgate popped up. I don't know if you guys caught that. Back in, when was it? Earlier this summer, the Phillies signed like the number 3 international prospect in the majors. I mean, in Venezuela. He's from Venezuela. 16-year-old outfielder Francisco Renteria. Reportedly signed he's got a $4 million bonus with the Phillies. just a couple of weeks ago as part of their bonus pool. It's like their entire bonus pool was 6.6 million. So he got more than half of the Phillies bonus pool. The number 3 overall international prospect. I saw an article by Anthony Stitt, who was a contributor for Forbes, wrote up a good article on him. One evaluator compared Renteria to Connor Griffin, who is the top baseball prospect in the world right now, racing through the Pirates minor league system as a 19-year-old. MLB.com's scouting report on Renteria says he's earned comparisons from one evaluator to Connor Griffin, who ascended to number 1 overall prospect status in his first year of pro ball. Others see even more in the tank for Renteria's right-handed hit tool due to his advanced offensive approach and considerable bat speed. He's presently a contact monster, which when coupled with his excellent understanding of the strike zone and his plus raw power leads him to having one of the highest offensive upsides in the 2026 international class. I don't think we're talking enough about this guy. And Phil's Tailgate posted something here on Monday night. Apparently, there is a home run derby taking place in Venezuela right now. Francisco Renteria hit 18 home runs in a home run derby in Venezuela. Salvador Perez is also participating in this home run derby. He hit 11 home runs in this all-star derby. And some of the other players that are in this home run derby include Ronald Acuna, Wilyer Abreu, Yasiel Puig is in this home run derby, and Jackson Chorillo is in this home run derby in Venezuela. So
it sounds like a great time for the record. This is
honestly, I hope there's beer.
Awesome.
God, that sounds like fun.
It doesn't sound like Venezuela is a great place to be right now, but if you just happened to be in Caracas and you had something to do and you popped 50,000 of whatever currency Venezuela is using and wanted to go see the Venezuelan home run derby, you had a good time. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. All right, Justin, you mentioned last week that you had some things about the Atlanta Braves, and I'm curious to see what you wanted to say, what you had in mind about the Braves, because I know Mike Petriello of MLB.com recently ranked all 30 rosters ahead of the hot stove season and had the Braves in a tie for 3rd, with the Phillies 5th, the Mets 5th, and the Phillies 9th. So I'm curious your thoughts on the Atlanta Braves. I wanted to hear what you had to say.
Well, the Braves are an interesting case in that they need a shortstop. I believe they're looking at shortstop. They're looking for a starting pitcher. In fact, Dylan Cease's deal with the Blue Jays kind of impacts the likelihood that the Braves might be zeroing in on Ranger Suarez himself in the days to come. And they needed a manager at one point. They were one of the many teams to have an opening at manager. Brian Snitker, I believe, chose to step down. He now has like a senior advisor job so it wasn't like an acrimonious ending for him, but the Braves did need a manager, and it was from this hire that I'm kind of developing these thoughts on the Braves. They of course hired Walt Weiss, and they didn't really hire him because he'd already been there since 2018 as the bench coach. Walt Weiss's name you may have heard before. I'm paraphrasing this, but I'm 90% sure it was Walt Weiss, who I read in a book at one point when he was a player. He was a defensive shortstop on the World Series in 1989 with the A's. And he said, I believe he had a quote saying something about like never wanting to manage in the major leagues and viewing that as like a really unenviable job. Zip forward a couple of years, and he's managing the Colorado Rockies from the 2013 to 2016 in an era, one of the many not great eras of Colorado Rockies baseball. Walt Weiss's teams, when he was manager, were never good. They in Colorado, they never won more than 75 games in a season, which is very bad. I believe it was after the 2015 season. They were asking him about his future there, and he was like, I'm signed up, man. I have no regrets, which again feels crazy for a guy whose teams keep finishing 75 wins or fewer. The Rockies swung and missed at everything in this era. They bunted, like they were one of the top 5 or 6 teams in bunting across baseball, which is crazy for the team that plays at Coors Field to be doing that as much as they were. And the Rockies were at the time organizationally super behind in analytics and StatCast, and communication was awful with the general manager's office. And it's Rockies. It was Rockies baseball. It was the Colorado Rockies, and Walt Weiss was the manager. All of that leading, some of it's his fault in the decision making and strategizing, and some of it's the team's fault for just being a gigantic mess. But the point is, if you look at that guy's resume when you have a managerial opening, it's not really, I'm going to say, top of the list kind of material when you look at his record as an MLB manager. But he's been more than an MLB manager. He's been the Braves bench coach since 2018. He believes a normal amount in analytics, and he says it's great to have, but it's like, it has to be used properly. He gave the answer you give to the analytics question now, which is that. That's the answer. That's what every sane manager is going to say. It's part of a toolkit. There's people who use it better than I do. I trust them. He said all that to the delight of Braves fans when he was introduced. He knows these guys. He knows these Braves. He knows this roster. He has worked with Anthopoulos' front office. He has apparently a very tight bond with Ronald Acuna Jr., something that Brian Snitker, I don't think, reportedly did have. And the Braves, what they did with this hire, and what my point here is ultimately, is that the Braves don't have to change despite not making the playoffs in 2025. They just have to wait. So when hiring a manager, something that is going to, in a lot of cases, impact a team, in our own experience, we watched a managerial change shift this team's outlook overnight in 2022. The Braves prioritized not strategy, but familiarity, because what they had is already working at an extremely high level. They just ran into a ton of injuries and bad luck in 2025, and they know they can just wait for sunrise on spring, slot in a guy to be manager who's been here the whole time and just knows the players and knows that this roster is going to play as a top 3 roster should in baseball. I think that's absolutely correct. And I think that's something that's really ominous about the Braves, because all they got to do is wait for spring, and they get most of their team back that they have locked up for years. And they've got a new manager who's like, yeah, I know these guys, go win.
Yeah, and you mentioned they're going to get a shortstop. They're going to try and get another starting pitcher, but they get Spencer Strider back healthy for a full season. You got to figure Acuna back, Austin Riley. I mean, they do have pieces there. They're kind of like a sleeping giant right now, it seems like. And you mentioned earlier that they want to spend money, so or they said they do. They should have a top 5 payroll. So
I'll see that. I'll believe that when I see it.
Yeah. But they traditionally have had a payroll in the top at least 7 in Major League Baseball. So, we'll see what the Atlanta Braves do. They are a little bit of a scary team. They're going to be they're going to be quieter this offseason. I don't think they're going to stay down for long. Last year just felt like one of those years where nothing was going to go right. All right, let's finish up here with some final thoughts. Liz, final thoughts from you to wrap up.
The Baseball Research Journal should be hitting mailboxes very, very soon. The fall 2025 edition. We've got, I believe, 13 articles by 14 different authors. It should be a really great read for everybody. I got to write the letter from the editor at the beginning. So yeah, you can buy that on the internet. You can buy that wherever books are sold. It's also in ebook form. You'll be able to get it on Amazon, and if you are a member of Saber, you will get it automatically. It is part of your membership. And if you are not a member of Saber, please go to saber.org/join, and you can pick one of the categories that you belong to. Are you a student? What is the other category? I should know that off the top. Are you a young professional? Or are you just a normal standard person with neither of those designations? You could join using any one of those, and they're all at different prices. And if you don't want to join, but you still want an issue, you can actually go and buy one off of the Saber website at a reduced price. It's normally $19.95, but you can get it for a $7 discount at saber.org/join. Thank you very much.
And that's sabr.org/join for folks who folks aren't. They were trying to spell Saber like, the thing you...
Yes, SABR, Saber, Society for American Baseball Research.
There you go. Good plug. All right. Justin, author of the forthcoming book, Summer of the Cheap Wieners, hitting newsstands in a couple of months. Any final thoughts from you?
In December of 2019, the Anaheim Angels made one man the richest third baseman in baseball history.
Yes.
Since then, the Angels have played in 810 baseball games. Anthony Rendon has appeared in 257 of them. And I'm only bringing this up.
What a grift.
partially because of that, and I don't have these quotes in front of me, but from the quotes a couple years ago where he was like, yeah, baseball's just not my number one priority. I'm just not like super into it. And you're like, yikes, dude. That's a lot to say for a guy who's going to make $38 million as a baseball player this year, but whatever. I bring this up because ESPN's Alden Gonzalez reports that they are discussing a buyout for the ensuing retirement of Anthony Rendon, who I believe is 35 years old, and yes, stands to make $38 million this year. I don't really have a lot of thoughts on this, more just that it's one of baseball's most ridiculous situations, and that it could be coming to an end is, I don't know, at least worth addressing, because yeah, like I said, that was Rendon has got to be one of the most least interested baseball players I've ever heard of in my lifetime.
The funny thing is, he was so clutch in that World Series for the Nationals.
He was.
And it just so clearly, you could see he so clearly decided, I won my ring, I got my money, I'm done. It was just reprehensible.
Or is it kind of the ideal thing that we all secretly wish we could do?
Oh, man. Well, I don't know.
I'm actually not sure I can meet you there on that one.
All right.
I'm as lazy as they come, but you know. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. And I want to encourage everybody, if you want to watch this show and you're not a subscriber to the WHYY YouTube page, you should go and do that right now. Every one of these off-season shows will be there on the WHYY YouTube page. So subscribe over there. Take care of that and go do that. Tell your friends and family to go do that as well. Lots of good stuff on the WHYY YouTube page as well. And of course, if you just want to listen to us through audio channels, podcast platforms, we're on all of them: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tell your friends and family members that's where they are. We got a big week coming up with the winter meetings next week, so we'll do a little winter meetings preview for you with the next episode of the podcast. And of course, if any big news breaks between now and then, we'll be back to tell you about it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Hittin' Season.